Hebrews 8 verse 3. The necessary offering of our high priest. For every high priest is appointed to offer gifts and sacrifices. Therefore it is necessary for this priest also to have something to offer. Hebrews has just lifted our eyes to the heights of heaven. We have seen Christ seated at the right hand of the Majesty, ministering in the true tent that the Lord, not any mortal, has set up. The picture is radiant, throne, majesty, heavenly sanctuary. But the writer of Hebrews is a wise pastor. He knows that lofty language must rest on solid ground. So in verse 3, he reaches back to a simple truth every Israelite child knew by heart. A priest is not defined only by where he stands, but by what he offers. John Owen notes that Hebrews 8 verse 3 functions like a catechism line, the essential law of priesthood laid beneath all the rich theology of Christ's exaltation. John Brown observes that after all the heights of Melchizedek and heavenly sanctuary, the writer returns to this basic axiom. A priest without a sacrifice is no priest at all. Hebrews 8 verse 3 becomes a hinge. In verses 1 to 2 we have seen where Christ ministers and who he is. From verse 3 onward the focus begins to turn toward what he has brought into that holy place for us. The offering is not yet named. That will come in chapters 9 and 10, but the question is now on the table. If Christ is truly high priest, what is his sacrifice? Hebrews 8 verse 3 teaches that because every high priest is appointed to offer gifts and sacrifices, it was divinely necessary for Christ himself to bring a real, sufficient, once-for-all offering. And that necessity leads us straight to his own self-giving at the heart of the new covenant. First, the essential law of priesthood. Every priest must offer. For every high priest is appointed to offer gifts and sacrifices. With that sentence, the writer states what Owen calls the essential law of the priestly office. The verb, kathistatai, speaks of formal appointment, of being set in place for a defined purpose. A high priest is not appointed simply to symbolize spiritual realities or merely to instruct or to inspire by example. He is appointed to offer. That is the beating heart of his vocation. The phrase gifts and sacrifices, dora te kai physias, is a deliberate, comprehensive pair. Lexically, dora includes offerings of gratitude, consecration, and dedication. The CI focuses especially on bloodshedding sacrifices. Together, as Kittle observes, they summarize the whole sacrificial rhythm of Israel's worship. Brown points out that Hebrews is not thinking of a single ritual, but the entire system by which Israel approached God. Behind this short phrase lies the solemn drama of the Day of Atonement in Leviticus 16. Once a year, the high priest enters the most holy place with blood, first for his own sins, then for the sins of the people. He does not step behind the veil empty-handed. His approach to God depends entirely on what he carries. Between a guilty nation and a holy God stands a man and an offering. So Hebrews reminds us, there is no priesthood without sacrifice, no mediation without offering. Remove the sacrifice, and the office collapses like a body with its heart removed. This is why, as commentators like Hughes and Schreiner emphasize, Hebrews cannot speak of Christ as priest in abstraction. If he is truly high priest, he must truly have something to offer. And here the atmosphere shifts. Having shown us Christ's superior person and heavenly place, the writer now presses into the human problem, sin, guilt, and the need for atonement. The gospel is not God simply deciding to be lenient. Sin is real, moral debt is real, and priesthood itself is a standing witness that forgiveness is costly. Every sacrifice declared, grace is not cheap. Second, the divine necessity of Christ's offering. The priest cannot be empty-handed. Therefore, it is necessary for this priest also to have something to offer. The little word necessary carries immense weight. The term anankaios, as Thayer notes, speaks of a constraint that arises from the very nature of things. This is not an arbitrary rule added from outside. It is an inner necessity. If Christ truly holds the office of high priest, then what is true of every priest must be true of him. He cannot stand before God empty-handed. Owen draws attention to how tight the reasoning is. Hebrews is not speculating about what Christ might do. It is reasoning from definition to reality. A priest without an offering is as inconceivable as a shepherd without a flock or a king without a realm. If Christ is priest, then he must have an offering. The office demands it. Yet, the verse leaves the offering unnamed. It is as if the writer intentionally lets the question hang in the air. If our exalted, heavenly priest must have something to offer, what is it? Calvin remarks that this verse prepares us to receive the fuller explanation in chapters 9 and 10. Animal blood will not suffice. Hebrews will insist it can never take away sins or cleanse the conscience. The debt is too deep, the offense too grave. Moral effort cannot pay it. Religious performance cannot erase it. The necessary offering must be of infinite worth, coming from one who is himself without blemish. In this way, Hebrews 8 verse 3 is like a doorway. It opens from the truth of Christ's priestly office into the blazing reality of his priestly sacrifice. The necessity laid down here, that this priest must have something to offer, drives us toward the only sufficient answer, Christ himself. Third, the once-for-all self-offering that fulfills every priesthood. Hebrews 8 verse 3 does not yet name the something, but the letter will not keep us waiting long. Soon we read that Christ entered the holy place with his own blood, thus obtaining eternal redemption, 9 verse 12, that he offered himself without blemish to God, 9 verse 14, and that we have been sanctified through the offering of the body of Jesus Christ once for all, Hebrews 10 verse 10. Here the scattered beams converge into one light. The offering our priest brings is his own incarnate life, his body given, his blood poured out, his obedience carried to the point of death. He is both priest and sacrifice, offer and offering. Owen suggests that Hebrews 8 verse 3 is the seed from which the rich theology of chapters 9 and 10 grows. The necessity stated here, he must have something to offer, is answered there with breathtaking clarity. He offers himself. He fulfills the universal law of priesthood not by presenting another's blood, but by giving his own. This is the costly glory of redemption. The office Christ holds presses him toward the cross. The priest who stands between God and sinners cannot discharge his calling with words alone. He must give a life. The hand that presents the sacrifice is the hand that is pierced. And this offering is once for all. The old priests stood daily, again and again, because their sacrifices could never truly finish the work. Christ's necessary offering, by contrast, is done in a single, decisive act. The altar at the heart of the new covenant is the cross. The smoke of that sacrifice does not fade from God's sight. The priest who had to have something to offer has offered it so completely that no further sacrifice for sin remains. The whole story of priesthood finds its fulfillment here. Every lamb slain, every goat led to the altar, every drop of blood on the mercy seat was a shadow cast ahead of this moment. The necessity of Hebrews 8 verse 3 is answered in the sufficiency of Christ's self-offering. Reflections for today. Hebrews 8 verse 3 speaks with quiet strength into a world that likes its religion bloodless and its grace inexpensive. Many are happy with Jesus as teacher, healer, or moral example, but uneasy with Jesus as priest whose ministry demands a costly sacrifice for sin. Yet without that offering, the gospel dissolves into advice. This verse exposes how easily we try to act as our own priests. When we fail again, something in us rushes to bring offerings, extra effort, extra religious activity, harsh self-talk, private vows that we will do better next time. We may not lay animals on an altar, but we still try to pay. Hebrews 8 verse 3 gently asks, if even the sacrifices God commanded under the law could not cleanse the conscience, how much less your anxious attempts to make it up? There is strange freedom in admitting that you have nothing adequate to offer. The necessity of the offering does not rest on you. It rests on Christ. It is necessary that this priest have something to offer, and he does. The pressure to balance the scales, to finally be good enough, is weight you were never meant to carry. Your high priest has carried it into the heavenly sanctuary in the form of his own life laid down. This truth reshapes our worship as well. In some church cultures, worship can feel like bringing our best performance to God in hopes of earning a hearing. In others, it can feel like trying to work ourselves into a certain emotional pitch to prove we are sincere. Hebrews 8 verse 3 reminds us that the true heart of worship is not what we offer to get in, but what Christ has already offered to open the way. Our songs and prayers are not payments. They are responses to a sacrifice that does not need to be topped up. It also steadies us when following Christ becomes costly. If the salvation we enjoy came by a necessary, costly offering, should we be shocked when discipleship sometimes hurts? Yet, even when obedience feels like loss, Hebrews 8 verse 3 assures us that the heaviest cost has already been borne. We are not offering ourselves to atone. We are offering ourselves in gratitude to the one who has atoned. And for the church in our generation, this verse is a quiet but firm safeguard. In an age eager to recast Christianity as self-help, moral uplift, or social program, Hebrews 8 verse 3 calls us back to the center. We have a high priest who had to have something to offer, and he offered himself. If we lose that, we lose the one thing the world cannot find anywhere else. Conclusion. Hebrews 8 verse 3 is a short verse, but it lies like bedrock beneath the gospel. It reminds us that every high priest is appointed to offer gifts and sacrifices, and therefore it was necessary for this priest also to have something to offer. The necessity of the office meets the generosity of the Son. The offering is not left vague. As Hebrews unfolds, we see that the something is nothing less than Christ himself, his body, his blood, his life laid down once for all. The priest who represents us does not come before God empty-handed. He brings the one sacrifice that can cleanse the conscience, reconcile sinners, and secure eternal redemption. And because he has offered himself, the way into God's presence stands open and will never close. The priesthood that once demanded an offering has found its final answer in the Lamb who was slain. Your priest is not searching for what to bring. He has brought it. He has given himself. And that finished offering is the solid ground beneath all your hope. Amen.